Have you had something you wanted to do, and before you did it, you wanted to understand yourself first. You want to start something, but you wonder if you're actually ready for it. Or you meet someone you like, but you don't want to repeat the patterns of your last relationship. Or you have this big decision that you want to make, but first you need to understand whether it is fear or intuition that you're feeling. So you journal about it, listen to another podcast, talk with someone. You try to understand where the fear comes from and what it is trying to tell you. And none of that is necessarily a problem. Understanding yourself is beautiful. It can help you recognize patterns you haven't seen before. It can completely change the way you relate to your own life. But there is a strange point in personal development where the things that once gave you freedom creates another set of conditions before you can live your life. When you need to understand the fear before you move with it. When you need to heal the pattern before you enter another relationship. When you need to feel safe before you take the risk. Know yourself well enough to finally trust yourself. And without realizing it, you have created a life where you're always one realization away from living your actual life. So, at what point does working on yourself becoming another way of postponing being yourself? That's what I want to explore with you today. Because I don't think the problem is we spend too much time to understand ourselves. I think the more interesting question is, what do we think this understanding eventually will give us? For many of us, there's a quiet promise underneath personal development. If I understand myself enough, eventually I will know what to do, know how to respond, know which decision I have to make, know if this is the right relationship. Then I would know if this fear is something that means I should stop or is something that I have to move through. Or then I would know what I really want. Then I would be ready. But the problem is that life rarely gives us this certainty. You can understand exactly why you're afraid of being rejected and still being afraid the moment you tell someone how you feel. You can understand your relationship patterns and still have no idea what will happen when you will fall in love again. You can know why visibility scares you and still have your stomach turned around the moment you're going to publish something. At some point, understanding reaches the edge of what it can give you, and then something else has to happen. You have to live. Because there are answers about yourself that don't exist yet. They can only be created through what happens when you meet life. And this is where personal development can become incredibly sneaky. Because postponing your life doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like doing more work on yourself. You tell yourself you're being responsible. You don't want to rush into another relationship before you are healed. It's where you don't want to start the business in the wrong energy. It's where you tell yourself you don't want to make a decision you'll regret. It's where you want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. And all of those things sound incredibly wise, responsible. And sometimes they are. but they can also keep you in a place where every human experience needs to be understood before you can enter life, where fear becomes something you need to solve. Uncertainty becomes something you need to work through. A returning pattern becomes evidence that there's still more healing to do. And slowly you become incredibly good in observing yourself while your life stays slightly ahead of you, because you keep telling yourself, after I understand this, after I feel safer, after I'm more confident, after I know what I really want, then I'll go, then I'll choose, then I will have the experience. And the difficult thing about this postponement is that there is always more you could understand. There will always be another pattern, another fear, another thing of yourself you haven't figured out yet. You can spend an entire lifetime preparing yourself for a version of life that can only teach you who you are when you enter it. That is one of the central tensions in my work. Awareness can become another place to live instead of living, especially when every feeling and decision becomes something to interpret. And I think this is where the question changes. Instead of asking, have I worked on myself enough to do this? What happens if you would ask, what could I discover about myself by actually doing it? Because there are parts of yourself that you cannot meet in preparation. You meet them in participation. You can spend years becoming ready for a relationship, but you will only meet the parts of yourself when you're actually with another human being. You can work on your fear of rejection, but you can discover something completely different about yourself when you ask for something and the answer is no. You can try to become confident enough to create something, but you can only discover your confidence when you made something imperfect, shared it, survived people's opinions, and then realize you're still here. And this doesn't mean we stop healing or we stop reflecting. And I don't mean you need to throw yourself in every situation, because life is the teacher. There are moments when waiting is genuinely wise. There are things that genuinely need time, support, and care. The question is whether the work you are doing is bringing you closer to your life, or is quietly becoming the condition you have to satisfy before you are allowed to participate in it. Because experience will teach you things about yourself that introspection never can. It's where you make the decision and life answers. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe the thing you were convinced about you wanted is actually something you don't want anymore. Or you make a choice and then you regret it, but you find out that regret isn't the end of the world. You can respond. You can change direction. You can choose again. And suddenly, you don't trust yourself because you have understand yourself perfectly. You trust yourself because you have experienced yourself living. You've seen yourself meet disappointment, change your mind, get something wrong, lose something, begin again. Your life becomes the place where you meet yourself. And that is very different than spending your life trying to become someone who is finally ready for it. And that is the point where personal development changes. It stops being an endless attempt, becoming the woman who can finally live your life, and becomes something that helps you meet the woman who is already living it. You don't have to finish understanding yourself. You get to meet yourself while you're living. If this resonated, there's a much bigger conversation underneath this, because this doesn't only happen through personal development. We postpone ourselves through relationships, responsibilities, through waiting for clarity and trying to make the right decision. And for all reasonable explanations, why now isn't the right moment. And slowly, a life that was supposed to feel like yours becomes something you're constantly preparing yourself to fully enter. In this video, I go deeper into why this happens and into the larger vision behind the creatrix work. What changes when you stop treating yourself as the thing that is standing between you and your life and begin discovering what it actually means to live as yourself? If you want to continue with me, you can watch that video next.